Welcome back to Word of Mouth. My name is Myers. Y'all know me. This is my friend Heath Paget. He's been on here before, and we've got a new friend here sitting in between us. Who are you?
Morgan Murphy, glad to be here.
Yeah, Captain Morgan Murphy. It's nice to meet you, sir.
Good to be here.
Thanks for coming on. What do you do?
Well, right now I'm unemployed.
Yeah.
I'm running for U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Declared 3 weeks ago.
I was going to say, how does one end up running for Senate?
Well, that's a long story, but I am running for Senate because I love the state of Alabama and I love the country, and I feel I'm the best qualified person to take the seat.
Heck yeah. I love that. Well, let's start back a little earlier. Maybe take us through, I know we're short on time a little bit, so take us through kind of highlights of your career, kind of where you came from, how you got here.
Well, I was born and raised not far from where we're sitting. I was born in Montclair Hospital and raised in Birmingham, Alabama. I went to Birmingham Southern College, and it was my dream to be a writer. So all of my life, I have loved the written word. I was an English literature major at Southern, and my faith teaches me that words are important. You know, the Bible opens with, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God." It didn't open with, "In the beginning was light," or "In the beginning was the spark," or a Big Bang. It said, "The beginning was the Word." And that's human beings' superpower. God gave us the ability to name things and to speak things, and a lot of times we speak things into existence. And I moved up to New York in my young days when I was your age, and got a job at Vanity Fair as an intern. I got a lot of coffee and a lot of dry cleaning, and learned a lot. But that was in the days. It's hard to imagine now for young people, but magazines back then made a ton of money.
Yeah,
They made a lot of money. We spent more on champagne than the whole magazine makes today.
Wow.
But then I went to Forbes, the capitalist tool. And worked at Forbes as a reporter, and eventually came back here to Birmingham, Alabama, to my hometown, as executive editor of Southern Living. I was the travel editor at first, and then the food critic, which was a great gravy train with biscuit wheels. It was fun. People said, "Why did you leave? Why did you leave like the job I want to retire to? I want to retire to being travel around and eating."
Yeah.
And I did 4 books that way, and had a great time as food critic. But concurrent to all of this, I joined the U.S. Navy in '99. I joined as a reservist in the Navy. Today, I'm still in. I'm a captain in the Navy. Had an expenses paid trip to Afghanistan on behalf of our government in 2010 and 2011, and then went back in 2020. And so along the way, I just noticed our culture in what I considered to be alarming decline. And I was sitting at my breakfast room table every morning cussing out the Wall Street Journal, right? I'd open it up and just, I couldn't believe what was going on, that they took the boy out of Boy Scouts, or that, my head pastor at my church called Jesus Christ a racist from the pulpit. And my beloved Navy that I joined, we were the finest fighting force in the world with more ships than any other Navy. Today we're number 2. China produced 900 ships last year. We produced 7. And I watched all of this from my breakfast room table. And the last straw was my dad died in 2020 during COVID. And because of COVID regulations, we couldn't have a funeral. My dad was an Eagle Scout and a great, great man. Tommy Kitzmiller came to that funeral. He sat in his car in the parking lot and waved to us, right? Because my family couldn't really grieve my father. But that same month, George Floyd had a funeral with 6,500 people present.
Yeah.
And I watched the government take away the liberties and freedoms of individual people like my dad, my family, and bestow special privileges on celebrities, on the famous, on the rich, on the powerful. And that's not how government is supposed to work. So I went to work in Washington I worked for the first Trump administration. I was the press secretary for the Secretary of Defense there. And I'd like to say that that was a great experience, but it was a terrible experience. It made me even angrier at what was going on.
Wow.
The door would shut, and the people I was working for would trash talk the president. I won't name names, but their initials were Mark Milley, and it was like don't you have any gratitude? Like the president gave you this job. You're a general and an advisor to the president because he picked you and selected you, and that made me furious. The way the media treated the president made me furious. My first job, my first internship actually was at the New York Post, which was founded by Alexander Hamilton,
Yeah.
the oldest newspaper in the country. And in 2020, they broke the story of Hunter Biden's laptop. And regardless of where you are on the political scale, whether you're left or you're right, I think most of us in America say, probably not a good idea to throttle the fourth estate. Probably not a good idea to censor the media.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what happened to that story. The New York Post broke that story. 50 government stooges, they called themselves national security and intelligence experts, came out and said it was Russian disinformation. The laptop story was fake. So Google and YouTube and Facebook and every other media outlet in America squashed that story in the middle of an election. I say the election was rigged because of that. That is, I might as well be Pravda. I couldn't believe, as someone who worked in journalism and who taught journalism, I taught journalism ethics at the University of Alabama for 8 years. That broke every ethical rule I could possibly think of.
Right.
In the middle of an election. And I believe it through the election. So that made me mad.
Yeah.
And after the election in January, I went to work for our newly elected Senator Tommy Tuberville. And Tuberville was new to the Senate, had never worked in politics. I had never worked in politics. And so here we go.
Yeah.
January 2021, if you think back on it, you're the president of the Young Republicans. We were not popular. It was like, I guess it felt like the end of the Hoover administration. It was a bad time to be a Republican. It was dark. And we walked by 25,000 National Guardsmen on the way to our offices. And we were hated by the Democrats, which, I kind of expected. But we were also hated by Republicans. And that's what I didn't hate, didn't love. We were the MAGA people that you could smell them from here, they said. I mean, it was just a visceral hatred and lonely and hard. It was a hard time to be a supporter of the president. It was a hard time to believe in the America First agenda. But Tommy Tuberville kept that alive. He was the first senator to endorse President Trump. I'm telling you about these conversations when the doors shut. But in Washington, D.C., when the doors shut around that time period, a lot of Republicans, their names, would say, "Oh, I don't know, Coach. You're making me nervous with, these abortion holds. I don't know, Coach. You're making me nervous standing up the Pentagon. I don't know, Coach. You're making me nervous endorsing the president so early, and maybe DeSantis is going to, they're a jittery bunch.
Yeah.
They're a really jittery bunch. But we stuck it out, and we witnessed in my lifetime, I have never seen anything like the comeback of Donald J. Trump. I don't think we'll ever see anything like it again.
It is pretty unique. That was one thing I was wondering was everything feels very polarized, and I'm 25, so my awareness of politics is maybe I'm going into my 9th or 10th year of kind of paying attention to much going on, and so most of my life as someone who could vote has been this crazy one side versus the other, duking it out, constantly calling each other these terrible names. Has it always been like that? I don't know what elections in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s were like, but it doesn't, from my perspective, looking back, it doesn't look as polarized.
It depends. right? We've been much more fractured than we are now. I'm a student of history. I think, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. So it is here in Birmingham. We experienced political violence in the 50s and 60s over civil rights. They called, this place Bombingham because there were so many bombs that went off in Birmingham and so much violence. And at that point, it was, the people who didn't want to allow civil rights trying to stop that movement. And I feel it's the same today. Actually, we're seeing that same kind of political violence where there are bombings, church bombings. We've had 2 this summer, and church shootings, and we've had a presidential candidate shot, and we've had Charlie Kirk shot, who is a civil rights activist, and shot in peaceful protest at the University of Utah. And so, while it's not exactly the same, it is eerily similar to that period. The darkest year in American history, other than the Civil War, was probably 1968. And here, 50 some odd years later, it's been a pretty dark year.
Yeah. I've made some comparisons with my friends talking about politics because I've read some books about the 60s and some of the assassinations and things that happened, and it is eerily similar. Some of the stuff going on.
Though, I think Birmingham can serve as a model for the prescription of what to do. So what did we do from basically, I was born in 72, so my entire life was a push towards the left. And the American left named schools and roads, and bridges, post offices, federal holidays after Martin Luther King Jr., right? There are tons of roads and schools and monuments around the country for that great leader. And I am a big fan of Martin Luther King. We learned his values in school. I heard sermons about Martin Luther King Jr. in church. Celebrated his life, my entire life. So for 53 years, we have celebrated his life, his legacy, what he stood for. We need to do the same thing for Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
So what role, you talk about this erosion of culture, what role, aside from naming holidays and teaching in public schools, does the government play in shaping culture?
The government plays a huge role in shaping culture, and it has, it shapes it through myriad ways. It shapes it through immigration. It shapes it through education systems, in grants and policies, in the economy. And those symbolic things, why they may just sound symbolic. The human spirit lives on ceremony. It's why we have weddings and baptisms and graduations and funerals, because you need that moment to mark the close of a chapter in your life and the beginning of a new chapter. And we need to close this chapter of political violence in America's life and open a new chapter, I'd say a more faithful and reverent chapter in America's life. And I think the turning point there, it's almost as if Charlie Kirk was prophetic.
Right.
But the turning point there should be Charlie Kirk. I hope that is the last violent assassination that we see in our lifetime.
Yeah. Did you ever get to meet him?
I didn't. Sadly.
I didn't either. Did you?
I really wanted to.
I didn't.
I had friends who had gone to some of his events, but I never got to meet him.
I was talking to Turning Point just 2 weeks before he was so brutally assassinated in front of us all, and it's just sickening.
Yeah.
I don't think I've grieved anybody as much since my own dad died.
Yeah.
It was a weird.
It was odd to me how much it impacted me.
It was weirdly personal.
Yeah.
And I think that's the Holy Spirit at work in us when you feel that inexplicable grief.
Yeah.
For another human being and for his wife and for his 2 daughters. That was a dark time.
Yeah.
It
Still
wasn't
is.
just an attack on an individual, a great individual. It was an attack on my personal values.
Yeah. Why should people my age care about politics? Because I find most of the time in conversations, I think some of the polarization, it makes people hesitant or unwilling to talk about certain topics and debate ideas, because it pretty quickly turns into an argument, and it's not really a debate of ideas at that point, you know. And I think typically people in my circle of influence, at least, just choose to kind of be ignorant or apathetic towards it. And I wrestle with it a lot. I think I studied economics in school, and I'm much more like a big picture person, and I like to understand kind of how the world works and how things run. And so that's about as far as I've understood why I care and I'm invested. And I just don't know. I don't know if I have like an argument towards my friends who don't care. Like, should they care? Do you think they should care?
They must care. I mean, if our freedoms, and you saw this as young people, you saw COVID, right? You graduated. You didn't have graduations. You know, think about all those rituals and those symbols that were taken away from your generation in particular. The erosion of freedom is the biggest threat we face as Americans. And I love economics. Watching most politicians talk about the economy is fingernails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
It is atrocious
to
listen to them, and their stupefying ignorance about how the economy works. And that's one reason I'm running, because it's so important to talk about economics and have basic economic literacy, but how it affects young people. So in 1980, a family, the average household income was $17,000, and the average house was $47,000. So about 2.5 times your income. And that was with one person working in the household. Today, the average household has two people working in it, and the average household income is like $85,000, and the average house in America is $420,000.
Yeah.
5 times your income. And so young people are mad, and they can't buy a house, and they don't think they can ever buy a house, because where are they going to get $100,000 to put down a down payment? And then the taxes on the house are awful, and so they're stuck in expensive rent, and they say, this is terrible. This isn't the dream that my parents had or my grandparents had. And this is the first generation since George Washington's time that think they're going to be worse off than their parents.
Yeah.
That's a political problem.
Yeah.
And it's a political problem of politicians making. They made this mess. And I've watched them make this mess. And that's why you should care. And that's why young people need to be politically engaged and involved, so that we fix it. Because it can be fixed. It's not too late to fix it. But it's going to take political will to do it.
Yeah. Keith, what does it look like to be involved in politics as a 20-something-year-old?
Well, kind of like you said, a lot of people aren't involved. So it creates an excellent opportunity for those who do care to be able to get involved and to be deeply involved. It's so vitally important, like you said, for people to care. All the time people are talking about getting people out to vote. Well, if you're not an informed voter, then it doesn't matter. You got to know what you're voting for and why you're voting for it for the vote to actually count.
Yeah. So how would you recommend people get involved? If you're 25 like me, what should I go do?
Come to murphyforsenate.com.
Yeah.
Come to murphyforsenate.com. We've got a volunteer sign-up sheet. I'd love to have your help. We need your grassroots help. I need your help with yard signs and getting that message out. You can read all of my policies there, and that is so important to me, that my policies are out front, up front, and center, because I'm a policy wonk. That's what I did for President Trump. That's what I did for Senator Tommy Tuberville. If you like them, you're going to like me, because I wrote a lot of their policy.
Yeah.
That's what I did at America First Policy Institute. That's what we do. And that's how the sausage gets made, is writing the policy. A lot of candidates have fancy consultants, and they have great speech writers, and they have marketing people, and their words are not their own. As we began this podcast, I believe in the word, and my words are my own. I write my own policy. I write my own speeches. You can read my writing for years of it is online from all the way back. You can read what I wrote for Forbes 30 years ago about small business, about Mercedes-Benz moving to Alabama.
Yeah.
Actually, 30 years ago, 27 years ago, I took the Mercedes was moving here. I was proud of it. I pitched it to the editor of Forbes. I said it was a good investment for Alabama to spend $242 million bringing Mercedes here. Every other financial outlet in New York said that was terrible. So Fortune, Barron's, the Wall Street Journal, all basically said some variant of Alabama, a state that's first in little but football, has given the largest tax break to Mercedes-Benz in corporate history.
Yeah.
And the editor of Forbes, I was, your age, and the editor of Forbes said to me, "We're not running this story." And I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Morgan, we don't like government picking winners and losers." I said, "But don't we like lower taxes?" Yeah. And he said, if Alabama gives Mercedes a tax break, wouldn't that maybe encourage South Carolina to give BMW a tax break, or Tennessee to give Volkswagen a break? He said, "Okay, you can write the damn story." And I did. And so you can go see that story online. And today, so that was a $250 million tax break back then. Today, last year, Mercedes-Benz kicked in $892 million into Alabama's treasury.
That's phenomenal.
In just 1 year. And so my track record, I'm not a politician. I've never been a politician. I've worked in politics, but I've never been a politician. But I have a track record. And it goes back 30 years. And you can go online. You can go to Daily Caller or to Newsmax or to Washington Times and read my own words, which you don't get to do with a lot of political. I've been in Washington. You don't get to do that with a lot of political figures.
Yeah. Do you still get to write much? I know you said you write speeches and policy and stuff, but do you ever write for fun?
I'm writing my ass off. No, it's not for fun anymore. But I'm writing more than I've ever written.
Yeah.
There's just so much to write. I think there's so much to write. And that's why I'm shocked. I want to see the policy. Like, what am I voting for? I'm not just voting for some person. Our politics are too personality based. I'm voting for a policy. I'm voting for someone who has a vision for the future and the way the future needs to be. And that's why I feel it's so important not just to put out the standard Republican talking points that are provided by the big think tanks in Washington, but what Morgan Murphy, who lives in English Village, really thinks about where Washington should go.
Yeah. How have you go ahead.
So the other day at your campaign launch, you talked about how to be an effective senator. And you boiled it down to three basic ways, either seniority, fame, or really knowing the ins and outs.
That's right.
So could you touch on your route?
Yeah, so seniority is pretty basic. Serve in the Senate for 3 terms or 18 years, and you get seniority and you get made to be a committee chair. Great. 18 years from now, call me up and I'll be helpful, right? But that's how most politicians do it. And that's why they're fossils walking around the U.S. Senate, right? They're ancient. Some of them have been there since Hitler was a private. And it just is. That's the way. That's the most common way to success in the Senate. The second way is to be famous. That's helpful, Tuberville, I saw it once. If I saw it 100 times, and he would be meeting with a famous CEO or a titan of industry or general who would give him a brief on, how important this whatever was, and that was really a serious conversation. And at the end of it, they would clear their throat and they'd say, "You remember that game back in 1987?"
Yeah.
And Coach would remember the game.
Yeah.
I remember we got the uprights, the wind was blowing, and they would have it was like they became 5-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And that had a soft power. People wanted to talk to him. They wanted to engage him. And that's what politics is about, is engaging people, not just in your own party, but across the aisle too. And he had that ability to do that. People don't recognize it because they don't see it happen, but I can tell you it definitely happens. The third way is to know what you're doing when you get there. And Katie Britt knew what she was doing when she got to the Senate. She had been a staffer, like I was a staffer. She knows how the Senate works. She knows how cloture works, how a hotline works, how the personalities of the Senate work. The Senate is a complicated place. It is not JV, football. It's probably a good idea to know how to dribble if you want to join the NBA. When you go to the Senate, and there are states that send people to the Senate that that shouldn't be in the Senate, and they fail. And they don't represent their states well, and they don't represent the American people well. And fortunately, Katie Britt in her first year in the Senate got the Lakin-Riley bill across the line. Most senators don't get a bill over the line in their first term, much less their first year. So that is the model and I told her when I met with her a few weeks ago, you're an inspiration and you're the model that I'd like to follow. And to be really blunt, we need to send somebody to Washington who will be a partner with Katie Britt and not work against her. Because we need our senators, we got 2 freshman senators, we need them to work together for the state and the country.
100%.
I feel like one thing that's a little bit of a misunderstanding about politics is it feels like everyone's unreachable. Like your senator is just it's this big man, this big woman who she's really important, he's really important, he does all these things. You're here to represent the people of Alabama.
Yeah,
and
we work for them.
I was going to say, I think maybe a misunderstanding for at least people I'm friends with is you can call Morgan Murphy. You can get in touch with him. You can go to his events and ask him questions. And I guess you being here is kind of evidence of that.
Well, I've always put my email address at the bottom of my articles, and Southern Living went out to 20 million people and I had my email address on it, right? I got a lot of mail.
Yeah.
And I'm just used to that.
Yeah.
And you get people, there's some guy actually sending stuff to my house right now and all of my family. It's weird in politics when you get into politics. It's a movie script about aliens or something. Anyway, it happens. But most of the time, people are thoughtful and considerate, and they have an important message they want to share with you. And the best thing to do is listen.
Yeah.
As a journalist, by training, journalism has a bad name right now, and deservedly so, because most journalists don't do what you're doing, and that is do first-person reporting. They report from other people's work.
Yeah.
Which is, I would fail any student who did that, but that's commonplace now. But the key element, the most important element of being a journalist is listening to someone else so carefully that you can then tell their story accurately to someone else.
Right.
That's the whole trick of
Right.
journalism. And that is a skill that most people don't, innately know how to do it. But I'm glad I had that experience in the first part of my career because I think it's helpful now as I enter this part of my career.
Yeah. That's really cool. I did want to touch on some of what you wrote about, which was food.
Oh, yes.
I kind of wanted to go through, maybe just say some highlights of some of your favorite restaurants around Birmingham and also around Alabama.
Okay.
Like maybe a top 3 of each, if you could figure that out.
From my days at Southern Living, I will tell you one of my favorite places on earth is right down here on Findlay Avenue, Nicky's West. Now, not Nicky's downtown. Different, same
Which
family.
I don't think exists anymore, correct?
Yeah, right. I don't know. I never went to it.
Yeah, I was going to say I've never been there.
Yeah, so it's the Hansa family, same family, but
Yeah.
different. I love Nicky's West. They have everything that has fly, jump, swim, or crawl, spread out dead on a table, and 75 vegetables. Banana pudding is a vegetable.
Yes, absolutely.
Jell-O is a vegetable.
Yep.
Only in the South, right? My 4 Southern food groups are bourbon, salt, bacon, and pie. So I love Nicky's
That's a good.
West.
That's a good food pyramid.
Yeah, it's kind of the food trapezoid. especially if you have too much bourbon, you can be a little crooked. But Nicky's West, when you go there's a sign that says, "To be served, no tank tops, no bare feet, no rollers on head." Because evidently at one time there was a roller-headed epidemic going on in Nicky's West. But you got to know, I mean, they serve 2,000 people a day, and I've always loved it. And I asked them for my last book, I said I'd like 2 recipes. I did this all through the South and wrote 4 bestsellers because, again, it was listening. Like, what's your best recipe? What do people really eat? And it wasn't, my cookbooks weren't books full of recipes that I liked. They were full of recipes that the public liked and craved and wanted, and that's why it did so well, I think. But the 2 most popular things at Nicky's West are probably the Greek chicken, which they gave me. They're like, no problem, here's the recipe. And the banana pudding. And they said, well, we don't know it. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know the recipe?
Do you not know the recipe to your own dish?
Yeah. And they said, well, Miss Carrie Hudson has made it every year since 1957. And if she will tell you the recipe, you can have it.
Wow.
She comes in at 4:30 a.m., so like that's not my hour.
Yeah.
But I got up and went and met her. And if you've made something every day since 57, you know, since the Eisenhower administration, you don't use a recipe card.
Yeah.
You know? So she just threw it all together, and I had no idea what she'd done. And so the next day I came back and I filmed it. And I took the footage back to the ladies at the Southern Living Test Kitchen. They would help me do the book because they'd break down, you know, when something started with 20 gallons of chicken stock, they'd break it down to a serving of 8, right? And they watched the footage, and they had no idea what she did. And so the 3rd day I went back, and I weighed everything she did. I'd say, stop! And, like, I'd weigh the flour and weigh the sugar that she did. And
yeah.
She made, like, a roux, actually,
okay.
out of flour to make the base of the banana pudding. And we really worked on that recipe so hard, and it's my favorite recipe. It's warm banana pudding.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Which is the correct way to serve banana pudding.
It's the only way to serve banana pudding.
Yeah.
And I went in to see her after the book came out, and she said, "Oh, your banana pudding was good, baby, but it wasn't quite." That's
fantastic.
I love that. I love I love Bottega, of course, and Chez Fon Fon, and all, these great. We owe so much in Birmingham to Frank Stitt.
Absolutely.
We've actually, in my orthodontic program, the program director said that you must eat at Bottega before you graduate as a graduation requirement.
I love him.
That's fantastic.
Should have made that a requirement at the University of Alabama.
Yeah.
It's restaurants like that. I was, Joe's Doc Seafood down in Gulf Shores is another one where, there aren't 2 chairs in the whole place that match each other. And they serve like 10,000 fried shrimp a day. And
That's crazy.
I worked in the kitchen one afternoon, and they taught me how to fry shrimp. They said, well, so the batter recipe, if you'd like the batter recipe, it's sold wherever fine books are sold. But they would batter the shrimp, and then he said, don't throw the shrimp into the grease tail first. Throw it head first. If you throw it in tail first, it'll curl up into a little ball of batter. But if you throw it head first, you'll get that nice little crescent moon shaped fried shrimp. And I'll be damned, he was right. You could never learn that from cordon bleu.
Right.
But the coolest thing about the job I had was I went to every restaurant in the South. It felt like went to hundreds and hundreds of small businesses, and they're all small businesses. I didn't cover chains. I only covered mom and pop small businesses.
Yeah.
And I talked with them, and I met the owners, and I did this for 15 years, and really understood, because the restaurant business is hard.
Oh yeah.
It is and generally is a family business. And, the camera would stop rolling, and I'd stop taking notes, and they would tell me about, the struggle with rent, or the struggle with labor, or the struggle with taxes, and all the things that the government, has its fingers in.
Yeah.
And I'm still friends with a lot of these restaurateurs years later, but it taught me so much about small business and people's dreams. And food is so important to humanity.
Yeah.
We'll give up, like an Italian immigrant to this country, their children might not speak Italian. Their grandchildren might not be Catholic. but their great-grandchildren will still have their great-grandmother's marinara recipe.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We just never give up. It's why when you go to Georgia and you have red beans and rice, you were tasting Cameroon. Right?
Yeah.
It's why when you go to New Orleans and you have, crawfish etouffee, right? You're having a collision of African food and French food, hundreds of years after the original Africans and French settled the place.
Yeah.
We just don't give that up.
Yeah.
So you can learn a lot about a culture by its food.
Yeah. I could talk to you about food for probably an hour because
There's a weird collision of food and politics.
Really?
Yeah, it does. I mean, like Vladimir Putin almost got, toppled by his former chef, right?
Huh.
Who drove within like 50 miles of Moscow.
Yeah.
Back in, I guess that was 2020, Prigozhin.
I had no idea.
2023, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he you got to watch out for those food critics.
Right. That's crazy.
So I believe, great men are marked by even greater interests. So you've got food. What else interests you?
Well, reading. I think all leaders need to read.
Absolutely.
If you want to be a leader, you need to read. I need to
For
put
sure.
my book list on my website. That's something
That'd be awesome.
I'm gonna do. Because I read I read a ton. I don't read as much now as I was a few months ago, but it's so important to read histories and biographies and I don't care junk. Just read it
Yeah.
all. It's important to.
The word.
It's important. Back to the word. It's important to read. It's so much more efficient than watching television. You can watch TV for 30 minutes and still get through maybe just 4 stories, right? But you can look at, now I say look at a newspaper. Still making the motion of the
Yeah.
newspaper, although nobody does that now. It's this.
Yeah.
But still, reading online is a lot more efficient than I think watching television.
Yeah.
For sure.
Aren't you into cars?
I am very much into cars.
How'd you get into cars?
Like an idiot. I don't know. I don't. For some reason, I've just always loved old Cadillacs.
Yeah.
My whole life, old American slush buckets, and they, to me especially, I started off in the '50s, which was American exuberance. I have a '57 Cadillac that has 6 drinking tumblers, 4 cigar lighters, 365 horsepower, and no seatbelts.
Yeah.
Right? It was just the way Americans lived. They put rocket tail fins on it, and it was just flashy colors. Now everybody drives a monochromatic car.
Yeah.
Right? Everything is, literally 90% of cars are sold are black, white.
I call them
gray.
transportation blobs.
Yeah, they're just dead. They're dead on the inside.
Yeah.
And I just loved that. I don't know. I find them nice to look at.
Yeah.
But also, when you're a writer, you never really finish anything. You abandon it because there's always like one more sentence you could change, or there's one more paragraph you could tweak. It's just you get it to good enough, and then you're done. But when I go out and change 12 cylinders on my 1937 Packard, man, it's Miller time.
Yeah.
And it's also binary. It starts or it doesn't start, right?
Yeah.
And so I like that. I like that work.
That's awesome.
And it's important to me that we have I wasn't taught those skills. My dad was not mechanical at all, and I'm really not. But I've learned them by necessity. Like break down in the Mojave Desert, you learn to fix a carburetor jet, or you stay in the Mojave Desert longer than you want. And so I've learned it kind of the hard way. But I really think those skills are important to teach in school. We've sold, this is another problem to young people, we've sold your generation in particular this idea that you have to go to college. And if you don't go to college, you're a lesser person. What a bunch of garbage that is. Like, why is the government picking winners and losers there?
Yeah.
Right? Why are we saying to one group of people, we'll give you a lot of money to study, literature of the Native American Indian, and, you, Bob, that want to learn plumbing, you're on your own. right?
Yeah.
Why are we making that as a society?
Yeah.
I love working on my car just as much as I love working on a political speech, and I don't see any. I'm the same person doing that work. I don't see any more value in one than the other.
Yeah. I have a friend who works in investment banking, and so he gets to see a lot of what's like selling in the business world.
Yeah.
What businesses are really valuable right now, and so many of them are landscaping businesses, pool companies, plumbing companies. They're all the trades.
And they make so much money.
Yeah,
They
it's
make so much
crazy.
money. Do you know McPherson College
Yeah.
in Kansas? Okay, so McPherson, is a small liberal arts college in McPherson, Kansas, right? Not particularly the great metropolis of McPherson.
Right. Everyone's heard of it.
Yeah. And they teach automotive arts. So they teach, all the stuff we're talking about, how to rebuild an engine, how to, reupholster a seat, how to paint a whatever. And they let the old guys come in the summer and take a class. So I was like, okay, this is good.
That sounds
I'm gonna
cool.
go. Yeah. So you can go, and I thought this was a cool vacation. So I went to McPherson and took a class.
That's so much fun.
2 summers ago. Awesome time. I mean, it's just like if you like cars, you're gonna love it.
Yeah.
I totally nerded out, with all the old guys, and I were like, beating wrenches on old stuff. And,
Yeah.
firing it up and watching it go. But I was blown away by the college. It's flat as Kansas, right? It's not like Harvard or anything. It's just, a functional. It almost looks like a kind of overblown community college. So there's nothing really fancy about it. They just got the largest endowment gift in the history of America.
Wow.
$1 billion.
Holy
was
cow.
given to McPherson. And the reason that is because the kids that leave there, all of them, 100%, have a job before they graduate
Wow.
because they're learning real skills.
Yeah.
And
It should be.
yeah.
It's the whole point of education.
Right.
And I met those kids and hung out with those kids and had beers with them and twisted wrenches with them and they're happy, right? They've got a bright, promising career, and I was like, why can't we do this for, like, why are we like? You don't meet a lot of really happy, and I was a liberal arts major, so I'd say this about my own field of study. You don't meet a lot of really happy liberal arts majors these days. They're disgruntled and they're angry and they've gotten a useless. I don't think learning to think critically is ever useless, but I don't think they're learning to think critically.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
We've inserted diversity of everything but thought into our college campuses.
Yeah.
And that's just sad.
Yeah.
So cars, yes,
Yes.
and there is a future. I mean, they're in North Alabama. It's ASFA, so the Alabama School of Fine Arts here in Birmingham. The equivalent is I forget the name of it. They're teaching high school kids to code.
That's awesome.
And these high school kids are being. I talked to the dean who said, like we're having to have them turn down $75,000 jobs.
Wow.
They're high school kids.
Yeah.
But there's such a need for it, the cyber and coding and AI and all these things that if you learn a skill, and if we teach skills and encourage that, our economy will be better off.
Yeah.
How do you think the CHOOSE Act and adding more school choice into Alabama is going to help improve things?
It's way overdue. It's way overdue. You shouldn't be a victim of your zip code.
For sure.
And that's the way we've designed our school systems, and it's a tragedy. And it's the only way. My sister, her son just was at Mountain Brook and wasn't enjoying it and was having a hard time there, and they decided to send him to private school. And so she went, and she was pretty fired up. Do not get in the way of, between, my sister and her child. So she stomped down to the high school and said, talk to the principal and talk to them. And they were like, we're so sorry to see you go. Right? 5-minute conversation. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Have you ever tried to cancel, your AT&T home internet? Right? And it's like $35 a month. Have you ever tried hang on, let me just put you over to a customer relations specialist.
Yeah.
There. We're gonna they do everything. You cancel.
I
American
just talked to
Express or
Spectrum the other day, and they are the bane of my
Hang
existence.
on, we'll give you a bonus. We'll send you
Yeah.
a free tote bag. We'll do
Yeah.
they'll give you a magazine subscription. They will go. It's $35 a month.
Yeah,
You know how much property tax in Mountain Brook is?
a lot.
We're talking about, and a child in the system not only gets the taxes from the city, they're getting taxes from the state, they're getting taxes from the federal government. So one kid in one school system is worth, I don't know, I'm just ballparking, $10,000 to $15,000, $1,000 a month. And they're like, sorry to see you go.
Yeah.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out. And that's because parents don't have a choice. Right? It's either send your child to this school system or tough luck, you're on your own. And we wonder why you're an economics major. We wonder why the outcomes are the way they are.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
They don't have choice. This choice is going to make a big difference in how our children are educated.
Well, I do want to be cognizant of your time. Probably wrap, but I had one other question I wanted to ask you.
I'm ready.
It's a hypothetical. You've got a 3-day road trip. Tell me where you're going from and to, and what car you're taking. Any road trip, anywhere in the world.
All right. Oh, anywhere in the world. I mean, gosh, that's tough. The Amalfi Coast would be on. I mean, Italy is gorgeous, but I don't know. I love
You need
driving.
to go to the Mille Miglia.
Yeah.
Oh, Milli Millia. Well, that would be the ultimate
Yeah.
road trip of all time. Yeah, to take a car on the Milli Millia, like a 54 Jag or something. I tried to get in one of those once, and my feet wouldn't go under the dash. It was like human origami
Yeah.
to get into. I'm 6'2", so the windshield was right here. I had a lot of bugs in my teeth. But
Yeah.
It was great. No, but road trips, I took a road trip here. I saw every state in America. I drove a 58 Cadillac to all lower 48 states.
That's awesome.
And it was the greatest. I encourage, maybe not a 58 Cadillac, but drive this country first before you go to the Milli Millia. Before you go abroad. It's great to go abroad too, but we have the most beautiful country in the world.
Absolutely.
When you see it from not from the air, but from the road, and talk to people, spend the night places, eat at local restaurants, break down in every state when you're trying. People say they don't make them like they used to. I say, thank God. They just oh my gosh, they had to change the oil like every 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
Cars. But it still was. If you're a dude and you raise the hood of your broken car, it is the universal male sign of come talk to me. And every man in the area will go immediately and
Absolutely.
talk to you. It's great. That's how I should campaign. I should just go break down.
Yeah. Well, where would the road trip be?
I love Charleston. I
Yeah.
love driving to Charleston. That's a great drive. Traffic's not too bad, and you can kind of avoid Atlanta, which is the seventh circle of hell in my opinion.
Yep.
But any time you can get off on the back roads is a good day.
And then what's the car?
Well, a car has to be probably a big old Packard.
Yeah.
Packard is I drove Cadillacs for years, but I finally went to Packard, which, if you don't know Packard, it was the best American car made ever. And I'm so proud of that company's heritage. They were the very first company to convert to war munitions during World War II.
Okay.
So the British Churchill sent the plans to the Merlin aircraft engine to Detroit by battleship, by dreadnought, so the Packard could make it. And the Merlin aircraft engine basically saved Britain in the Battle of Britain, right? There was a Spitfire engine, and it had 15,000 moving parts. It was made by Rolls-Royce. But the RAF pilots preferred the American-made Rolls-Royce engines, the Packard-made Rolls-Royce engines, to the British-made ones.
Yeah.
In fact, I was at the British War Museum, and some old guy was talking about this, and he said, "Oh yes, the Packard Rolls-Royce engines flew higher with better altitude. It's really a shame that you Americans stopped making the Picard.
Yeah.
And I said to him afterwards, I said, it's Packard. He said, no, it's Picard. I said, no, it's pronounced Packard. He said, nope, it's Picard. I said, look, man, we invented the car.
Yeah, I think we have the right.
He said, yes, dear boy, but we invented the language. He went home to his wife that night. He was like, got another one.
Got him. Got him.
Like, really?
I got him with the we invented the language one again.
Yeah, it was a good one. But he was proud of it. I was proud of it. It was a great American company that made, and that's why I like manufacturing so much and want to see us manufacture things. When you make something, you have something tangible that you've made, and you can show your children and your grandchildren, like, I made that. I love looking at my Packard and seeing made in America on it. When I take off the oil filler cap, which has got more metal in it than most hubcaps on a new car, right? But I love that thing. And it says made in the USA right on it. And everything when I was a kid was made here.
Yeah.
Made in Japan meant junk.
Yeah.
And it just it breaks my heart. And I do not want to see this country in decline. We have to make things again, which is why I'm running.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
You bet.
This is fun. Yeah, it was a good time. Everyone listening, check out
MurphyForSenate.com.
MurphyForSenate.com. I assume you have all social medias and everything like
I
that.
have all the social medias. It's Morgan W.W. Murphy. If anything I've said to you, today resonates with you, $5 would help. A cup of coffee would help the campaign, because it just means so much to have someone involved, and our whole team cheers when there's a donation coming in. We pay attention to that. And, especially for those of you in Alabama, that makes a big difference to us.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers, everybody.